Alright, so I was asked to do a little tutorial on how I use bright colors in my artwork, and I figured I might do a broad application for everyone, given that people would appreciate that. So, first up, I should probably make sure everyone's brushed up on color theory. We of course have the color wheel with the three primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. Usually not this specific shade of blue, but I use this shade of blue for reasons that'll become clear in a sec. These are the secondary colors. When you mix them, mix red and blue, purple, red and yellow, orange, blue and green, or blue and yellow, green. It's very, you know the deal by now. Then, of course, there's the tertiary colors, which are the, these ones, which is still important. Don't forget them. Of course, that's not the only, like, color combinations there are. There's, like cyan, magenta, and yellow, which I believe we all make them not screen blending. Actually, yes. No, it's multiply. Sorry. What am I doing? It's like they could blend together to make all the colors of when it's light being blended together, instead of black, it'll be like white in the middle. It's like no, that's for ink blending. When it comes to RGB, if we make them all screen, so yeah. When light is blending, it's screen blending. When pigment is blending, it's multiply blending. Let's smush those into one thing so I can like move them over here. But the color wheel is what you mainly want to know. And there are many. From the color wheel, we can go about making palettes, like it's a good way to do this. So, of course, we have the analogous colors, which let's go with this orange here. This is our base color, and then if we're going to be analogous, we can this red. They're all next to each other on the color wheel, so that's nice. Then there's complementary, which is something like red. Let's take this let's just use this red. Again, opposite on the color wheel is the complement, which is this green. These colors work well together, though they do clash if you're not careful. Similar, then there's a triadic color palette. Well, actually no, we'll just split complementary first. So let's take yellow as our base color, and then that means the split is, well, opposite to yellow is this purple. Yeah, this is purple, and actually no, opposite to yellow is how do I do this? Something like we do yellow, and then there's this blue, this pink. That's split complementary because these two are both technically complements to yellow, with the yellow being the main color. There are tetrads, which would be something like pink, orange, like blue, yellow, green. That's a tetrad. And finally it's triadic, which is something like this. Like purple, orange, and green. The primaries and like complementary and secondaries, I mean, are triadic themselves, which is something good to know. In my art, I often use a lot of really bright colors. I'll just quickly find an example of my art that uses the bright. Okay, this one's a really good one. This one I made for an exhibition earlier in the year. This makes a really heavy use of super bright colors, because if you use super bright colors, you end up it looks like a mess. It's sparkle dogs, you know. And a lot of people have a very negative opinion of sparkle dogs. I'm quite fond of that like design decision, which is part of the reason I use such bright colors. But when you're dealing with bright colors, you need to be especially careful to ensure that you're using them correctly. And it's like how to shade the colors as well. Especially when you're doing like neons like I do. Let's say this is just like a red ball. We typically someone shading would be like, okay, so let's like we need darker red. Like a little bit darker. Then we need a lighter red, a little bit lighter. And they'd be like, okay, there we go, we've shaded that red ball. Maybe if they're like feeling really adventurous, they'd take like a really bright highlight, but that's unlikely. That's not how we do it. That's not how that's not how we do it here at whatever my industries are. Let's reset this ball. So we need to go darker, but that's ugly. So we initially go darker, but then we take the color wheel and shift towards blue, which in this case is a more pinky tone. Depending on how far you go, can like be to do with realism. But something like that. That's already an improvement. The amount of like lighting and stuff also depends on like the shininess of the thing. We can get into that at some point. When you're going up to like brighter, you want to brighten the color, then shift up towards yellow, which it's up to you how far you want to go. It doesn't always have to be super far. And it can also help to add just a little bit of like bounce lighting. That's important. Lighting is very important. Also, yeah, the brush you use doesn't really matter. I personally really like this like nice little rough brush for doing my art. It's ink reader. It's ink 4 pen rough. Then we can add our line there. So that's something. That's something. We're getting somewhere. But let's go again and say you don't want to cell shade. I often do cell shading, and even when I do gradients, I often mix in a little bit of cell shading. But that's not due to an inability to do gradients. Like I can do those. I'll demonstrate here. Oh, also, a lot of the time when you're doing shading like that, actually, when you're going down, you want to increase the saturation if you can, but when you're going up, you want to decrease the saturation. But you have to kind of typically brighter is less saturation, so more towards grey as well, whereas darker is more saturation. But yeah. So we're gonna do gradient shading. Let's get that there. Something I like to do is to get like a nice chewy appearance. We wanna sort of shade it up a bit as well. There's also a matter of getting a nice little balance in. Because remember, no one's rushing you to make art. Take your time. Man, I'm like the degenerate version of Bob Ross. Brighter on top. Maybe we also want to make sure we're still like preserving the main color of this, but I'm gonna keep that darkness in. But that's up. Then we want to get our nice bright highlight. And that's pretty good. Getting some with that. Of course, you don't want to be shading every texture like that. Maybe I'll make a video showing off how to shade different textures, but another thing you can do is get nice like red here. Red here. Like a blue. Then so it looks like experiment with different like things like maybe screen. Maybe it is normal. Probably not. Or maybe it's not bright enough. Maybe it's too bright. Point is, just like make sure you're experimenting. It's probably not a great example when I'm doing it with like hold on. It's not a great example when I'm doing it with red and using a red like corner thing. We can probably get something like the orange, yeah, like that. Like things like overlay. Like we can scroll through a bunch of them and see which one looks nice. Like hard light, or what does soft light look like? Soft light, hard light. It's up to you. You can turn down the opacity to make it a little bit less intense. Maybe you wanna trim around the edge a tiny little bit for that bounce lighting. Genuinely, it's maybe you want a darker blue or something. Interesting how the colors mix. I definitely need to play around with blending modes because I'm not amazingly well versed in how the blending modes work yet. I don't understand specific equations, but that's nice, right? That's good. Can do that. And we will name that as balls. Alright. So, we're getting somewhere. Let's take, Let's make a slime person, shall we? Just like something, Nice and simple. Probably putting too much effort into this body, but it's alright. Maybe this slime has, like, cat ears. Slimes are fun. It's gonna be pretty basic, just because, like, one tip I've learned for drawing arms is to draw the hands and then the forearm, like go up the arm instead of down the arm. That helps quite a bit. In, like, making it look functional. Though overall, I'm not gonna be like. We can do a face a little bit later. I'm not gonna be going into, like, insane detail on how to do it. Let's get, like, a size 10 the brush and just make sure you're using your stabilizer. That's very important. It's not cheating. It's a very basic thing because a digital art pen doesn't glide like a traditional art thing as much unless you have a fancy tablet that does. I have a fancy tablet that does, but I still use a stabilizer because I like how it feels. So also, not everything here that I've taught can be applied to every single artwork. It's very much... This is mostly... It's pretty broad, but some of it, like... The use of extremely bright colors is pretty much a thing that's, like... not used in most... styles, so... Be mindful of that. A good way to fill this quickly is let's use our select tool. We can set the selection extent to extend to all black. We can do that. Then we can go in the holes, fill those in. Then what's important that we do is we go into select, invert selection. You can't see that actually, which is a shame, but by inverting the selection, we can essentially get, say, the square tool and just like that. Nice and easy. Now, let's pick a random color. I'm just going to close my eyes and spin this around a bunch. Don't know how I did that. Change of plans. I'm gonna just... And then... Looks like the slime is gonna be this shade of blue. It's a nice shade of blue. Now we gotta remember what we taught. So, we wanna... To go darker, we wanna move down and increase the saturation. Then shift more towards the darker, cooler blues. Then we want to kind of shade these areas a little bit, like darken the centers. Leave space around the edges, that's important. even darken a little bit more. You don't want to overdo it too much, too. Also, this is absolutely airbrush abuse. There are other brushes, but this is just a very easy way of demonstrating. If we want to do what I do, where I mix in a bit of cell shading and gradient shading, we can do that. Don't overdo it though, that's important. It needs to remain kind of believable. A very specific art style, I suppose. Now, when we're doing lighter sections, let's shift more towards yellow, and we decrease saturation and lightness. So it's kind of both. Especially around the edges, you want to be doing this. And then towards green again, lighten it up. These little highlights are quite important. They help make it clear that this is a shiny surface. Oh yeah, put a lot of the shines in where it's darkest. I might be overdoing it, to be honest, but like, this is a very shiny creature. We have. We're getting more progress going on. Something that's always fun to do is take like the darkest color you used, which we used this blue. We shift it even darker. Doesn't need to be too dark considering this creature is relatively light, and then we want to recolor the line art to that color. Potentially, we can also include a bit of gradient. And we can work on a little face for this thing. Which is pretty neat. Doesn't need to be anything too special. So that's be a screen layer, so it's it doesn't like overpower the highlights behind it. And now we have this slime cat thing looking pretty good, looking good as ever. What else should I cover real quick? I guess like just like the brightness of colors. Like outside of specific styles, you don't want to be using colors this bright. Like generally speaking, unless you know what you're doing, I wouldn't advise using colors this freakishly bright. And same goes for like pure black and pure white. That's like generally want to avoid those if we want to like improve them. We can make that with like an off-white, not that far off, just like the little, that red. We just move slightly off the original. Yellows are usually pretty bright, so like you don't want to go too far with yellow to avoid it not looking like yellow and more looking like puke. But it's just like generally speaking, no, you don't get like, you don't naturally get perfect colors. You want like off colors, if that makes sense. Let's throw together like a quick little gradient background. Typically, when I'm doing a gradient background, I'm just like pink, pink, and then I don't know, maybe an orange. That's pretty nice. You can even experiment with our slime cat. Like, do we want to make it EX? Alternatively, we can just make it a tiny bit clear. Just to spice things up a little. I'm going to keep it at full brightness though. Just because it's more an example of that rather than the color blending. That's pretty much part of my color process, I guess. You got any more questions? Ask me your questions.